Hey guys, Joe Richardson here, real estate investor and realtor. If you have been following my videos, you may recall this house purchased in Warsaw, North Carolina. I wanted to make an update video on this project. Long story short, this project didn't go as planned and we ended up dumping it for a loss. As you may recall, we purchased this house off market straight from the sellers with the intent of rehabbing and selling it. In my previous videos, I captured the process of meeting the sellers and negotiating a price where I sealed the deal with them late at night with everyone signing. I mentioned on those videos that this house was way outside our area that we normally work in, but I felt that if I could get it for a good discounted price, I could make the numbers work for a flip. The numbers on paper were strong, with a $40,000 purchase and an estimated $40,000 rehab budget, and accounting for holding and closing costs with a conservative after repair value of $165,000. I felt that these numbers were very attractive, and I could overcome the likely challenges that could come up. However, there are some lessons learned and things that I did not account for that I should have. The first mistake was bringing on 2 additional investors onto this project. Correction, the actual mistake was not having investors, but how I structured the agreement with these investors and failing to set the expectations with them up front. Because these investors were new to real estate and they had a personal relationship with my partner, I tried to structure a deal to bring them on while easing any of their concerns. I promised these 2 investors that my partner and I will guarantee their investment and essentially give them 2x return on their money. So basically, they would provide $10,000 each, and once the project was complete and we sold the house, we would double their money. Also, the agreement included that if the project did not sell by a certain time frame, they would have the option to have their $10,000 returned, making them whole. In hindsight, this was a terrible way of structuring an agreement with investors. Essentially, they were not really investors because their money was guaranteed. They were more like lenders with a return that was horrible for us. So from now on, with any investors that we bring on in the project, they will share the same risk and percentage of return that we all have as real estate investors. In one of my earlier videos, I mentioned that the person that I met at the town hall also tried to purchase the same house we bought. What happened was that when I went to the town hall to open an account for utilities, which is common in smaller towns to be required to do this in person versus online or even on the phone, I found out that the person at the town hall tasked to set up my account also attempted to purchase the same house. Apparently her talks with the sellers fell through, and that's why they reached out to me, my partner and I, to sell us a house. Obviously that did not sit well with her, which I gathered from our conversations. Even though I don't have evidence, I believe that this town hall official was responsible for sending the town's zoning and code enforcement officers after me. Of all the vacant and abandoned houses in Warsaw, they decided to come after us and impose multiple fines against us. We got fines for stuff like uncut grass, an unpainted house, and for having a vacant house without much warning. For the grass, I initially had it cut at least once a month, which I felt was in line with the neighboring houses. I was told that the grass cannot be higher than 4 to 6 inches in multiple spots. I believe that was the height that was told to me by the code enforcement officer, and that there would be a daily fine until that matter was addressed. I ended up paying a guy $50 each trip during the summer to mow the lawn to avoid those fines. For having an unpainted house, I asked the officer why they are not enforcing that rule because the house has been in that condition for years. His response was that the town has recently decided to enforce it, so we had to have painters do a rush job with painting the exterior. Again, to avoid another daily fine. The 2 to 3 months that we expected the project to take ended up taking a lot longer. The issue was that the group of contractors that we normally work with and relied on were busy with other projects. We also had other projects ourselves that took up most of our time. I believe that the distance to Warsaw was a lot and it became too much of a burden for our subs to handle. We attempted to find more local contractors, but they were either not available or did horrible work as evident by the terrible paint job we received. Eventually, we were approaching 1 year without much accomplished, other than what was done to avoid the fines. By this time, one of the investors decided that it was taking too long, and instead of requesting for her initial $10,000 back, she demanded $40,000. She even had an attorney draft the demand letter. Obviously, this was unreasonable, but I decided to negotiate despite having an agreement. We settled at $12,000, which was her $10,000 plus a 20% return. By this time, the code enforcer started to come back with more fines for having an unoccupied house. Also, we started to have squatters. A couple of them ran out the back door on one of my visits. So I decided to cut our loss and place a house on the market for sale, being sold as is. One good thing with this project was that I was able to leverage the house as collateral for a note with seller financing used in the purchase of another house that became a good investment for us. Being that I'm also a licensed real estate agent with access to MLS, I can mitigate our loss by selling the house myself. So we ended up selling the house for $90,000 after all our expenses, including selling with the other investor for $13,000, so it was $25,000 total, paying back the note and the contractors for the work that they did do. We walked away with a small loss. Another lesson learned, in addition to structuring agreements with other investors that share both the risk and rewards, I learned that prior to expanding into areas that we normally don't work in, I need to do more work on the front end with establishing the right team of local subs and contractors for that area before starting any project. Jump on a deal with as many red flags as I saw or should have seen could have been a lot more disastrous, despite having numbers that look great on paper. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and I'll talk to you guys later.